like to welcome everyone to our regular meeting for the month of May. Let me quickly go through and remind everyone, Governor Abbott back in March of last year granted a request by the Attorney General to suspend a limited number of the open meeting laws in order to be able to, folks continue to have meetings virtually or by video conference. We are posted up to have our meeting both in person, as y'all can see, but we are also broadcasting it as we have done, if that's the right term to use, making it available virtually. No one signed up to speak by virtually. Okay, so I'm going to omit that. For folks that are present, we might have some folks that sign up to speak to an agenda item, and we'll deal with that when we get there. We have had the meeting posted for at least 72 hours, and I'm going to omit reading the rest of this. Y'all have heard it before, and I don't think any of it otherwise applies. So, without further ado, we have a quorum. Ms. Watts very intelligently left to go see a choir program, so props to her. And in lieu of the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, we have a special treat, the national anthem. Yeah.
As Ms. Milligan pulls this up for all of us, we will stand, but this is one of our students that's in the BPA program, though, that was asked, and Ms. Janeka sang this.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Yeah, that kind of puts our pledge to shame, doesn't it? We have an outstanding number of students and folks to be recognized tonight, so we're going to, without further ado, get there. But before we do, one housekeeping measure for the board members. Whether y'all realized it or not, over the past several meetings, because we had been making the meetings available online, your mics had been turned on, and in order so that we don't get a bunch of things that when the meeting's not going on and that sort of thing, your mics are off. So if you're going to speak, turn them on, and then when you're not speaking, if you'll remember to turn them off, sort of like the Zoom calls, Zoom meetings. Just a reminder, and without further ado, recognition.
Mr. Russick, members of the board, it's my pleasure to be here this evening. We have a number of student recognitions. Very exciting to have our students with us. Again, reminds us of the reason why we're here to begin with. And of course, to Ms. Janeka for that wonderful performance, truly, truly outstanding. And so tonight, we're going to start with some high school recognitions. I'm going to introduce to you Ms. Allison Smith, our high school principal, to recognize our BPA national competitors. Be assisted tonight by our board president, Mr. Pete Russick. So Mr. Russick and Ms. Smith, turn it over to you.
So y'all are going to have to bear with me because there's quite a few here tonight, which is fabulous. And so we're going to start with our BPA national competitors. And 10 Midway High School students competed at the BPA National Leadership Conference, which is the highest level of competition for BPA. All students placed in the top 10 of nationals. Congratulations to our BPA winners at the national level as they join our teachers up here at the front. So I'm going to start with Miss Tanya Lacey, Miss Susan Jones, sorry, I did it out of order. Miss Susan Jones, Miss Tanya Lacey, and Mr. Kyle Rogers. These are our three teachers, and they work very, very hard with our students each and every day. So our first group was Best in Show, and this was our software engineering team. This is Chris Harris, Caleb Pruitt, Alistair White, and Mark White. Oh, he's not here. Okay. So this, again, is our software engineering team that won Best in Show. Okay, and you guys can head on this way. You may be coming back, just circle back around. So, our next group placed first place in the Startup Enterprise team, and this is Courtney Janeka, who just sang for us beautifully, and also Aaliyah Burns. So why they're here at the front, their business was called Domino. It's a company that helps virtual students learn Spanish. Courtney was also featured singing the national anthem in front of Midway High School during the National Leadership Conference opening general session, and was recently notified as a scholarship and a trip to Washington, D.C. for winning a national songwriting competition for promoting the Constitution. Congratulations. Next team is second place. This was individual multimedia media, and this is Cameron Cole. He's his own team, by the way. So, Cameron created a video about pros and cons of virtual versus face-to-face learning, which is very important this year. So. Our next student is Emily Badeau, and she placed fourth place in legal office procedures. So, Emily, if you want to slide on this way. And next up is Chris Harris. I know he walked back around the other direction, but Chris Harris was sixth place in Java programming. Congratulations, Chris. You may only have one certificate. One certificate per kiddo. Congratulations, you got two. So congratulations, Chris. Next up is a team that was the virtual multimedia and promotion team. This is Jedediah Doyle, Emily Badeau, and Cameron Cole, and they were eighth place. And their video was about unboxing and promoting a drone. Congratulations. And once again, we have another team. This is a software engineering team. This is Chris Harris, who's coming back for our third time. Come on in, Chris. Again, remember, this is nationals. Caleb Pruitt. So this is Caleb Pruitt and Mark White, I believe, Alistair White. One of them's not here tonight. For their creation on the video game Nuclear War based on the card game from the 1960s. So congratulations, guys. And our last BPA award is the 10th place finish to Madeline Smith. And I'm not sure if Madeline's here tonight, but she was doing fundamental desktop publishing, which she placed 10th place. So congratulations to all of our BPA winners. Great job. Next up, I would like to invite the girls golf head coach, Harvey Welch, to come on in, and please come on to the front. And next, I would like to invite senior Euban Shim, and come on in, Euban. So last week, Euban finished 36 holes of regulation at the UIL Class 6A state tournament. She finished in 4th place at the Legacy Hills Golf Club, only 2 strokes behind the individual champion. She was the Region 2 6A individual title champion. She's the Payne Stewart Junior Championship winner, the American Golf Association champion, and Euban has signed her letter of intent to play golf for Boston College. Congratulations. Good? Thank you, guys. Congratulations, Euban. Our next group that we are honoring tonight is our Unified State Track Team. And Midway competed in the inaugural UIL Unified Track and Field State Championship in San Antonio, earning 3rd place out of 11 teams from across the state. Unified is a branch under Special Olympics, and Unified teams include special education athletes and general education partners training and competing together in the same events. At the Unified State Meet, the Midway athletes and their partners participated in the 100-meter dash, the 400-meter dash, the 4x100-meter relay, long jump, and shot put. The athletes were held to the exact same standards and rules as athletes in the traditional UIL track and field state meet. Although the athletes compete individually, they are scored together with their partners, and only team awards are given to encourage a truly unified partnership. We applaud the following students and coaches for their achievement and their dedication to the Midway Unified and Midway Special Olympics. And I'm going to ask the coaches first to come up: Julie Bazinski, Elena Leone, Kristen McCarroll, and Jordan Baugh. And so these are our 4 coaches. We also have a student coach, Daquan Portis, that's here with us. Wave, Daquan. There you go. And so, our athletes for this evening are Derek Kingston. He's not here. Angelo Garcia. Philip Archard. Come on in, Philip. You're coming up to the front. There you go. Good job. And Chandler Hooper. Nikolai Seibel was not able to be here with us tonight, but I see Diana Cossey coming in. Next, we have Chanel Cordero. It's not here. Maddie Potts. Come on in, Maddie. And as you guys can see, Maddie is sporting her state championship 3rd place championship medal. So that's what they received. And definitely last with this group, but not least, is Jacob Brown. And these are their partners: Shaden Kozier, not here; Jordan Reeves, not here; Akayla Ellis; Catherine Willis; Catherine Sparks, yay! Lucy Webb; Emma Spivey, and Caden Clark. And I believe we also have 2 managers. I don't know if they're here: Thomas Contreras and Krista Scott. Nope, neither one, but I'll slide in together. What? Okay.
The mamas get them, everybody? Okay, thank you.
One of the last things that it talks about with Midway Unified is not many programs exemplify how Midway is truly stronger together than our unified sports. Congratulations to these athletes for paving the way of this new program. So last on here, I have state UIL academics, and I'm going to ask Ms. Marcia Alvarado to come up to the front. She's one of our coaches for UIL academics. Midway High School student Carson Lutz earned 3rd place in literary criticism at this year's UIL academic state meet. Come on in, Carson. The UIL Literary Criticism Contest assesses the competitors' knowledge of literary concepts and their familiarity with the authors and works that represent English language literary history. That was written by an English teacher, I'm sure. Midway High School English teacher Marcia Alvarado served as Carson's literary criticism coach. Congratulations, Carson, on an outstanding performance at the academic UIL state meet.
Yeah. We have time. That's fine. Do it again. Do it again. Let's do it. Let's do it right. There we go. All right. All right. Congratulations. You bet. All right. So next we're going to turn our attention to some award winners at the state level in PTA Reflections. As you all know, the original works of art from 17 Midway students from elementary to high school were recognized at the state level of the Texas PTA Reflections Contest out of nearly 850 entries. Congratulations to the following Midway students whose work is being recognized at the state level of this PTA contest. So I'm going to start from Midway High School. Casey Levers? You'll come forward, please. Film production, I matter because of what I have to offer. Honorable mention. And Alyssa Utrera, literature, why I matter. Participant photography, a cumulative effort. Also honorable mention. So I'll stay together real quick for Ms. Marlin, the high school students. Let's congratulate our high school. All right, if y'all come this way, you got photos. All right, now from Midway Middle School, I'd like to recognize Marissa DeRozier. Film production, Everyone Matters, honorable mention. Congratulations, Marissa. All right, next is from Intermediate School, River Valley. I have Kendall Schaefer. Is Kendall here today? All right, but hers was in dance choreography. God Made Me Matter, and received a merit award. And next, from Hewitt Elementary School, I see him, Pedro Garcia, literature, Mrs. Singletary, honorable mention, and photography, Walking to the End of the Earth, also honorable mention. And also unable to be here tonight is Natalie Harper from Hewitt Elementary, dance choreography, Crystal Bump, honorable mention. We certainly appreciate the work of our students, parents, and staff who pulled these contests together, and to, of course, our fabulous PTAs across Midway ISD to support this endeavor. So again, congratulations. All right, and now it's my honor to see some Midway staff members. So next on our recognitions is National Board Certified Teachers. The National Board certification is used by districts and states nationwide to develop and retain teachers and to generate ongoing improvement in public schools. To achieve board certification, teachers must submit evidence of the advanced knowledge, skills, and practice in the content area and student development level in which they specialize. On May the 5th, Tammy Johnston and Lindsay Stevens participated in a virtual national board pinning ceremony to recognize the successful renewal of their national board certification. So if they would please both come forward. Ms. Tammy Johnston first, and Lindsay Stevens. All right, stay there with Mr. Rustick for a quick photo, and don't go anywhere just yet. All right, let me explain to the crowd here just a little bit longer. Stay put. TEA, our education agency, recognizes these accomplishments of teachers, and each will receive a stipend from the state through the teacher incentive allotment, as well as an additional stipend from Midway. Leaders, and mentors serve in the Midway ISD cohort program to support other teachers who wish to pursue this certification. Our district was awarded a teacher incentive allotment grant from the TEA in the amount of $20,000 to fund the work of this cohort. We now have 6 National Board Certified teachers in the district. Tammy Johnston, just introduced, a first grade teacher, moving to a first grade teaching position at Hewitt, and Lindsay Stevens is an elementary GT specialist. Also, Kathy Lentz, a librarian at River Valley. She's right here. Congratulate Kathy Lentz. And Kathleen Minshew is our district mentor and induction coordinator. If she would also please come forward. Formerly our innovation and learning specialist at Spring Valley. Congratulations, Ms. Minshew. We also have one here in our audience. Dr. Lori Sapp is our director of secondary curriculum. And I don't see her, but also Ms. Sherry Burns, our new principal at South Bosque Elementary School, is a National Board Certified teacher. So again, thank you all for your efforts. Thank you to our certified teacher, National Board Certified, for going through the process again, to our mentors that are working with them. And I'll tell you, our district and these mentors are working not only in Midway, but I know their skills and they're asked to help others across Texas and across our region. So we are indebted to them for their hard work. So congratulations. Congratulations. So proud of you guys. All right. That's it.
Okay, so we've got our School Health Advisory Council report as an information item. If no board member has any questions about that, then we'll move on to the presentation discussion items, the first one of which is the monthly finance report. Wesley.
Good evening. Our financial report presented is for the month ended April 30th. If you'll notice, the last page of the report, page 13, shows our current projection for the general fund for the year, projecting a surplus of revenues over expenses in the amount of $1.1 million. That includes all budget amendments adopted previously during this year by the board. It does not include the budget amendments that are in this board packet. We do have 4 of those. I'll cover those briefly. The first 2 budget amendments, 9 and 10, are for items from the ice storm in February. Initially, we thought we came out pretty well, pretty limited on the amount of damages due to the storm, but a couple issues that were lingering. There was some water under the 7th grade gym floor that surfaced. It took some time for us to discover that, so to replace the gym floor is $122,000. Also, the terrazzo flooring at Woodway Elementary was stained with the water damage. We thought over time would dry it out would look better, but it was the stains continue. We're able to get those up, so the process it takes to get those up and make it the floor look new again is going to cost $96,000. But hopefully those both should be included in our insurance claim. We'll get reimbursed for those 2. The next 2 are not insurance related. $35,000 for a collaborative response graphic for some security measures to help emergency response teams with maps and locating areas, campuses throughout the district in the case of an emergency. And budget amendment number 12 is our one-time retention incentive payment to employees for $481,000. And if those are adopted, it would change our surplus from $1.1 million for the year to $615,000 for the year. Also, currently, we have all of our campus and department budget requests for next year have been submitted, and we're reviewing those for accuracy. And at the conclusion of the 87th legislative session here at the end of May, we'll know what our revenue estimates look like for next year, and I'll give an update on next year's budget at the June board meeting. Any questions?
Any other questions, comments from the board?
I had a question, I can get my thing to work. So there was, the federal money that's coming, where does that factor in? Okay, is that included in these projections?
No, no, it's not. So we did get some ESSER 3 is what it's called, COVID relief funds. We're projected to get $4.7 million from that, and we have 3 years to spend. We're still working through all the specifics on what we can use it on, kind of what our 3-year plan is going to be. But no, that's not included in the current year's numbers. I'll kind of go into more detail at our June board meeting when we look at the next year's budget.
So in that same vein, Wesley, just so I'm clear, I mean, we've had several different acts passed by Congress that provided additional funding, some of which flowed through to the states for educational purposes. And this swing from a minus almost 60,000 to a plus of 1.1 is not the result of receiving any federal dollars from COVID relief.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Anybody else?
No, just, as Mr. Brooks said, we will have, waiting on final rules about the allowable expenditures under ESSER. There's an ESSER 1, 2, and 3. I think Mr. Brooks was talking about ESSER 3. Correct. It's 3 different rounds of it. And then we're also waiting on ESSER 2 that hasn't been published yet, if districts will qualify for that and or for dollars flowed to districts. And so there's a lot of unknowns, but again, we will develop a plan. It's our understanding through the application process through TEA that Mr. Brooks then will develop the plan and submit it through the grant application process.
And that's due at the end of July.
You're right. Deadline is at the end of July. So as he said, we'll have more information in our June board meeting.
Very good. Bond construction update. We ready for that one then? Buddy? A lot going on.
Yes, sir, there is. There is a lot going on. I have some new information, some new numbers for you, hot off the press. Dr. K hasn't even seen them. I know it always makes him nervous when I get up here because he never knows what I'm going to say.
Don't do that to me. I'm fragile as it is. So be careful.
So the CTE and Ag Shop edition, if you've been by there, you've seen there's a lot going on. Walls are going up. You can tell there's actually construction going on now. The Ag Shop part itself is in the dry. And so those projects are going as we anticipated. It's looking good. The band parking lot, we know that we're going to be crunched to get that done before the band needs to start practicing in July, but we're still hopeful that that's going to happen. At River Valley, if you've been out by River Valley, you'll see that there's actually metal in the air at River Valley in the academic wing on the front section. I think that's section 3. That slab is finished and there's metal going up for the 2-story section. There's some block walls that are up. So that's exciting to see that. The Technology Center, we've had a little bit of a setback there. We were hoping to bring you a guaranteed maximum price at the June board meeting, but because of some design issues, there was a little bit of delay in getting the drawings finished. We thought, well, we'll just take our time and do it right the first time instead of rushing and maybe having to do something as an alternate bid later. So we're hoping the plans are to have the drawings finished a couple weeks into June 3rd. Jesse, is that right? June 3rd? And then have it bid, and possibly, if you guys are available, maybe have a call meeting in the last week of June to approve that guaranteed maximum price for the Technology Center. But the budget numbers are looking good. Of course, we haven't bid it yet, but we're looking like we're going to be right around that $6 million that we anticipated that it would cost. The new elementary, if you've been down Ritchie Road, you can see work going on there. The work continues on the building pad. All the piers were drilled. All of that went well. They are pouring grade beams now. Barnett Construction is there starting on utilities. So a lot of things going on there. Woodgate. So our OAC meetings for Woodgate have begun. And as we told you from the beginning, the Woodgate is the trickiest one logistically because we're going to have construction going on while there's kids in the building. We think we have all of that worked out. Here's the numbers that I have for you. I've been telling you that Woodgate is going to be over budget from what we initially projected. Because we initially projected $11 million in the bond, but that scope of work has continued to increase there, but it's all things for the better. Some things that we didn't count on when we came up with the $11 million for the bond was replacing all the casework in all the classrooms. We're putting new marker boards in the classrooms, making the classrooms to be arranged similar to the new elementary that we're building. So that's some things we weren't planning on. We weren't planning on swapping the library and the administrative offices, but that just, it was evident that that was a great idea and would make the building much more functional. The front entry work, we had talked about increasing the driveway, but we hadn't planned on doing all the front work with the facade changes and the canopies and all that. So, and we also had not figured in playgrounds. I don't know if you've built any playgrounds lately, but they're expensive, and there's 2 on this campus. So with those additions, right now, the opinion of probable costs, and this is with Cloud Construction getting together with Huckabee, is $13,391, and that has $650,000 of contingency built into that. So we're over, but not too bad for what all we're getting from it. The high school in Woodway HVAC project continues on. I know Rick knows, but all of you may not know, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make all of this come together. And I'll just mention an issue in case it comes up in the future and y'all do have to get involved, but we're having a small issue with permitting with the city of Waco, but we'll get that worked out. If we don't, you'll hear more about it in the future. Anything you'd like to add to that? Anybody? Any questions?
Woodway you're having, I mean, it wouldn't be Woodway, because Woodway's in
High school.
So Buddy, in round numbers, with the ones that we've already got a GMP on, where we were under, what's sort of our net if Woodgate came in at roughly what you've just told us? Do you have an idea where that is?
So I haven't done that number off the top of my head. I think we're still in the green. Wesley has, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Wesley. You have a spreadsheet of all those costs. So if we were $2.5 million over on Woodgate, kind of where would that probably put us?
We would still be probably to the good, about 10 million.
And then out of that 10, you would think that 6 of that is for that doesn't include the technology center, does it, or does it?
No.
Right.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, we needed about $4.5 million more for the technology center. And as you mentioned, probable cost is 6. And we've spent under budget $5 to $6 million on both the Career Tech Center and the River Valley Center. So again, that totals 12 to 13 million under budget just on those 2 projects. And so with 4.5, and as you mentioned 2, we're still well under budget, being able to do the modifications that you mentioned regarding Woodgate. So we're still good. We're still in the good.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right then. Child nutrition update. Instead of just getting to enjoy the fruits of his labor, we get to hear from him tonight. Rudy?
Introduce Rudy Frett, our Director of Child Nutrition here at Midway ISD. Welcome, Mr. Frett.
How's everybody doing tonight? Awesome. I'm here to this board meeting to provide the client business review for Midway ISD. So just the beginning of how we start off the year under the National School Lunch Program and potentially end up changing this to the Seamless Summer Option. The Seamless Summer Option provided free meals to all students, free of charge, breakfast and lunch, and also we were able to provide weekend bags and things of that sort. And focused on ways to provide seamless options at every campus. Because at the beginning of the year, it was kind of hard trying to mitigate how we're going to actually serve. But we found out precise ways and made it happen. So, and on to just our daily commitments. We provided daily health monitoring. So as they walked in to the back of the kitchens, they did health monitoring. They checked temperatures. If staff or employees didn't feel well, hey, make sure y'all stay home. We took advantage of the Midway ISD, the tracking system and things of that sort. At campuses, we did the floor decals every 6 feet and also provided masks for all employees at the beginning of the year, part of their uniform. What we're doing now, so like I said, as we transition over to the Seamless Summer Option, we transitioned and we started doing weekend bags. As of now, we've done, which this number was actually from last week, May 11th. So this is actually 73,000 weekend bags that we pass out every Friday. It's been a tremendous program, something that we've been able to do for every student. Currently, we started at 4 campuses, so now we're actually doing it at 8, and something that we still want to provide for next year. But also talking about weekend bags, we also provide virtual meal students. So the virtual site, which you'll see on slides later on down, is actually a site where we do curbside. We actually changed the system up come January. We're all about trying to make changes and make the better. Just our commitment to Midway every single day, trying to get better. But that number is 77,000 meals that we did for virtual students, but it's also counting the community as well. So it could be a parent that comes by that actually has a student that's in school, but they actually have 2 kids at home where they actually grab 3 meals. And also providing promotions as you can see. A lot of our vision is how could we really, keep pushing the envelope with promotions and things of that sort. So promotions, we're all about it. Keeping student focused engagement opportunities. This is just some of the things that we said, like I said, focus on the student, menu promotions. With our dietitian, she was still able to do nutritional education classes, along with our chefs still doing food demos, which has been great. A lot of times we built relationships at Hewitt and some of the other campuses, and we're still able to provide that. Switching to offer versus serve, that's a big thing for us. Whenever we start off the year, we actually start off the year as straight serve. With straight serve is where every student gets every option. We start off with that just because serving models. It was easier to put everything on every tray and have every kid grab it. But as we make changes now, as we look at it, which I actually, myself in December, going to each campus, seeing what the students are eating, it's like, it's time to change. And as, the practices loosened up and, we seen that it was well to do, we switched over. And also providing birthday baskets, which has been, as we all know, being a closed campus and parents not be able to, enjoy their birthdays. It's been a great, and you'll see pictures later on down the slide. It's been great, parents could, hey, got 20 students in the class and we could provide different snacks and that sort. And also engage in teams. I'm all about communication. That's what I always stress to my team. And we have weekly office meetings, just us in the office. We talk about daily changes and things that we want to change up for the future. And we have bi-weekly manager meetings that we started doing on Zoom and that sort. Just always keeping the door open for changes. And also, just always appreciating our staff because they work hard every single day. And also safety behind the scenes. Like I talked about before, a lot of things that we've done behind the scenes, but it's also things that we also do on a daily basis as well. We practice good hand washing. We practice using gloves. If employees are sick, they would always stay home and things of that sort. So that's always things that always kept in the back of our minds. So on this slide, social media. As we're in a day of age of technology, we really found that, having a focus on social media and actually putting out some of the things that we do behind the scenes and promotions and things of that sort, we felt that it was a great addition, trying to, link up with the community and actually showing them what do we do on a daily basis. But also we found it as a way to link up some of the promotions that we're doing and also some of the things that we're doing for the future. We actually use social media over spring break. We provided meals at 2 campuses at Spiegelville and Castleman Creek. We use social media to let them know, hey, these are 2 drop-off locations, and we've seen a madly increase of families that came by, and it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome to see, and they're well over the top for it. But you can see like all the answers we've answered on social media, total followers, and you can actually follow us and see a lot of great things that we're doing day in and day out. Providing a sense of normalcy. This year has been weird, so it's like, how can we provide limited time offerings that we usually would do every month? So we start off the year doing some things like, that's a picture of the birthday baskets that we provide at some of the campuses, which we thought were great. We still did Thanksgiving meal this year. We didn't do it with the families, but we provided for the students as some sense of normalcy. You can see the 2 pictures on the 2 sides were the Farm Fresh Challenge, which we just wrapped up, which is great, and also doing the pop-up stations at the high school. Engaging in the students, as I said before, finding ways to reach the community plus reaching the students that are at home. So whenever we first started off the beginning of the year, we actually started serving at the EMSI building. Come December, I'm like, what's an efficient way to where we can actually serve the community and serve the students, hotter meals, better meals, and, we came up with this system. It's been a flawless system so far. The parents will actually go online on the midwayisd.org website, click on there. They can order the day before. We always put it up by 3 o'clock, and they come, they call in the order, we'll bring it right out, hot meal, and they have breakfast and lunch. Lunch for that day, and then breakfast for the next day before they come back. We send out weekly menus with the families on Friday so they know what's to come, and it's just been like you can see the increase whenever we changed January 19th has been a 59% increase, which is awesome, and families enjoy it. Innovating for the new normal. As we all know, the new normal is still to come. We just don't know, especially with food service. As you go to restaurants and stuff, a lot of things have changed. But for us, is always providing quality meal offerings. That's always on the top of my priority list. As being a chef, a lot of y'all see my work, and I want to provide that work every day with what we provide with the students. So it's always about pushing the envelope. But providing healthy meals, and so these 2 promotions are 2 of the action stations that we actually did at the high school. We used our executive chef, Chef Logan. He provided those 2 options. It was receptive. We did a case study because we also wanted to provide the option because, like, what are future meal offerings we could provide for the high school students as we, still look for the future and provide change and resiliency. Like I said, it's been a lot of things that have changed over the year, and, our team has stayed strong and still providing meals every day, but also providing meals all year. So the seamless summer option is right now extended through summer 2021. We have a system in place to where we'll have 6 locations. All of our summer school sites will be open. It'll be open for the community and the students, but it's also, we'll have Woodgate and Spiegelville open as a one week drop-off or pickup for the families. So it'll be 6 sites open in June, and come July, we'll have about 4 sites. So we're really just trying to, do promotion. We're gonna start sending out, things on social media and stuff like that to really tell the parents what time to pick up and things of that sort. And as we transition over to SSO, you can see that as of April 30th, we've served 692,000 meals, which I feel is awesome. Like I said, our group, as you can see that bottom picture, that's actually how we kind of start off the year, everything packaged, and, we transition back. Team engagement. Like I said, I'm all about, inviting my team. Hey, if we have problems, let's talk about it, keeping the open door policy. So team engagement for me is big. Even with everything going on, everybody's keeping a smiling face and keep coming to work. And, the primary focus is, serving quality meals for the kids. So at the bottom, we did Lunch Hero Day, which that was 2 Fridays ago. We provided just little snack boxes for each campus. And, they loved it. Had, a card for them that we handwritten and things of that sort. So. And also, you can see in the bottom right, just some of our lunch heroes in different, yeah, that one always tickles me too. So into finances. So as I said, I mean, as we started off the year, it was a weird year. As you can see, looking at service days, and service days right now for the whole year, for the full year is 170. Prior year was 123 because we stopped serving after March, which we still did serve meals. Total billable meals between right now, which those numbers are actually just March only. It doesn't have April, May, or June inside, so we're already trending up to actually have more meals this year than last year. Client revenue is up just because a lot more reimbursements and things of that sort. But you also see, just as we began the beginning of the year, is that everything was packaged. So that does cut into some of our variable directs, which means more paper, more products to, try to provide safer meals. And then also on this side, this is more in detail. This actually could see, so if you look at March, and we could just look at, let me look at it, lunch meals. As of March, we did 84,000 K in lunch meals, which that's a big jump from the year before, that's a big jump from the month before. So trending up, I mean, I think we have a great system in place. Even though we're looking at a loss for this year, as we move forward to the future, we have good systems in place. We have good programs in place, and I feel that come next year we'll be right back where we were before, especially with the increase of student population and getting back more to scratch cooking and things of that sort. Questions? Thank you.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that because I hadn't heard anything about that. I'm a parent too. So tell us how that's communicated and how those work.
So it's actually a program that we've been having. It's actually been on our catering guide and something that we've always had on our website. Whenever we first started, we kind of revised it a little bit, added some different, wording and things of that sort. So a lot of times, like, it could be like the teacher, like, having that packet, or like as parents and stuff reach out. But a lot of that stuff is actually on our food service tab on the midwayisd.org website. So you actually see something like that. And also, just always call our office because we're trying to provide anything for the kids. So
Yeah, I don't have any information from email or anything from campuses about it. I think it would be great for parents to find more ways for more parents to know what that is. So.
I'll note that for sure.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah, the only thing we're looking at for next year is just trying to revise it just a little bit. It's a great system, but right now we are passing out after school. I know, like, I've had some conversation with Dr. Johnson just trying to figure out some different ways to how can we really streamline it a little bit more. So really trying to look at that system for next year. It could be where, because it's also trying to get the parents' consent as well, because some kids come home with it and they don't actually want it. So trying to get that parent consent from the beginning, and then we'll probably like pass out to the classrooms where they could have it that way. So we're actually looking at different ways to streamline a lot more opportunities that we already do.
Are you working with Hunger Free MISD? Is that, if you've taken that over, working together? Tell me how Hunger Free MISD is working.
Well, it was just really, we're trying to find ways to where we could reach every student. So it was really just initial conversations of, how does Hunger Free work? How can we coincide with it? But I mean, we feel that, both options are great. Two different students might take either or, and I think it's having both, but it was really just for us trying to reach as much students as we can.
No, that's great. I just wanted to know, I assumed you were working together, but I hadn't heard about this, so I want both programs to succeed because we need to reach the kids and feed them. So that's good you're working together. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Very good. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank y'all very
Appreciate it.
much.
Good to see you. Virtual school for next year, ma'am.
You sound so excited.
Well, it's a moving target, isn't it?
It is, and we'll talk about that. I'm glad
Yes.
you brought that up. So, Mr. Rustick, members of the board, we're excited to talk to you about what we've learned about virtual school this year, and then also the opportunities that we may have moving forward. So a quick snapshot of this year's virtual school. This is a snapshot of our enrollment. We began in August with over 2,800 students. That was roughly a quarter of the district in a virtual learning setting. And then currently, we still have over 1,200 students in a virtual school setting. So we wanted to talk about TEA's response to this program at the time. Virtual school began because of the pandemic, and so there were procedures put in place. The rule books weren't necessarily rewritten, but there were extra guidance pieces given on top of that. TEA, and I would also say Midway's take on this environment is that for the overwhelming majority of students, the best place to learn is face-to-face in the classroom. And we want to encourage students and families to bring their students back if they feel that is the best setting, and we want to make that the safest setting possible, which is what we've done this year and why we've been open since August. Still, even though this virtual and hybrid school setting is not perfect for everyone, there are some families and students that have thrived in that environment and want to see it continue. So, the Texas legislature is currently determining how this will continue and whether or not it can continue. There were bills in both the House and the Senate addressing virtual school, and so we're still waiting on the outcome of those pieces, but it's been fairly positive along the way. The end of the legislative session is May 31st. So TEA suggests, and we also believe, that you can't wait until May 31st to begin making plans for something that's going to roll out next August. So in that case, we're looking ahead, talking to stakeholders, looking at community interests, talking to our teachers and administrators, and looking to see what the plan is for Midway moving forward. So as we talk about this, there's a couple of terms. We just want to use some common vocabulary because many things have been introduced this year that we didn't really know what they were until we started talking about them, and then we weren't really sure what they were even though we were talking about them. So just to clarify some of those things, a term that you'll hear often is blended learning, and that is simply, like, that means different things to different people, but what that means to us and to TEA is that you have a combination of face-to-face instruction and digital online learning tools. Well, we've been doing that for over 8 years because we've been a one-to-one iPad district for that amount of time, and we've used learning management systems and other digital tools. So in a sense, we've been blended long before blended was popular, right? The next thing that we've heard a lot this year is concurrent instruction. And concurrent means that a teacher is responsible for supporting both a face-to-face student and a virtual student during the same class period at the same time. We know that that is incredibly difficult. And it's something that we're looking to change as we move forward. But that's concurrent teaching. That's what we mean by those terms. A hybrid model, you may hear this often in many schools outside of the state of Texas that are just now coming back to face-to-face instruction. And then some of our schools, even in this area, began the year with a hybrid model where they didn't have everyone come face-to-face at the same time. They would rotate days. So a student might come to school on a Monday and Wednesday, and then the other days they stayed at home for remote learning so that the population wasn't as dense at that time or at a single time. So that's what hybrid means, is that you receive some of your schooling at home and then you receive some in the physical building, but it's the same student receiving both types. And then the last thing that you see there is 100% virtual academy or program, and that's what we facilitated this year. Our students could be in a remote learning environment 100% of their instructional time. We also had the 100% face-to-face time, but those weren't mixed, so that's what that means there. This is another very fun virtual setting diagram here. Concurrent is the first model that we're looking at. If you look at the blue and the purple students in the teacher's classroom, one represents face-to-face and the other remote learners. So in that first one, the concurrent teacher is teaching both face-to-face and remote learners in the same environment. The next piece is something we're looking at for secondary schools, and so that is split scheduling. So a single teacher might teach virtual and remote learners, but they would never teach them at the same time, in the same setting, in the same period. That way, a teacher can focus attention on that particular group of students and then utilize the tools that are going to meet their needs in a way that they're not splitting time or resources between those two different types of learners. The next one is split staffing. We did that for our elementary model this year because we had a dedicated virtual teacher for our virtual students and dedicated face-to-face teachers for our face-to-face students. A virtual program is also what we ran this year because we didn't pull students out of a particular school to allow them to do virtual. We just rolled it all together. So we didn't create a new, unique virtual school code and accountability. They were just part of the school or the school system. And then that last one, we talked about hybrid learning. So the two new things that they're talking about in the legislature right now are the options for a permanent funding and identifying of virtual schools and hybrid schools. These would operate as their own entity. So they would have their own school ID number, they would have their own accountability, they would have a physical building necessarily. They could be a school within a school, but it would operate in a way that it was accountable for its own outcomes. So why would districts make these decisions? These are many of the reasons that districts have brought to the table. The first one I think is very important, and it's a way to look at enrolling and getting our students back, or including all of our students. Many districts in Texas, many districts across the nation experienced a drop in enrollment, and we want to make sure we have all of our students engaged. So if virtual learning is what engages them, then we want to continue to offer that. We know that it's a redesign of learning. We know that it's an opportunity to personalize learning for some families. It may also help families who are still concerned about the health environment, that they don't have to make a decision to bring students back face-to-face at this time. So a myriad of reasons that people would choose or districts would look at a virtual school option. So in addition to that, we look at what the families need. What's the best fit for the child? What's the best fit for the family? And we look at what that is right now through the questionnaires that we've sent to the community. So TEA suggested that you begin planning for virtual school options if the district chooses to move forward with that, and to monitor those legislative updates. Again, the House and the Senate both had bills that they were looking at. People are very interested in that idea. And then we want to plan for implementation before May 31st, and then make changes based on the outcomes of those new rules. So our current steps, we've begun talking with students and their parents about these options. So that's been one in the format for our high school students. They do guidance counseling every year already. They talk about their course selection. So they began talking about virtual school and whether they would want that option or not back in October when we began counseling with students face-to-face, and then through virtual meetings for our virtual students. So we gathered information that way. We sent a questionnaire to parents of intermediate and middle school students to find out their interest. I have a snapshot of that here in just a minute. And then for elementary, we sent a questionnaire to the parents of current virtual school students. So the elementary students, the parents that responded, there were nearly 120 responses. 53% said if offered, they would be interested in enrolling their child in a year-long virtual school. We wanted to differentiate that because this year they were allowed to make a choice at each 6 weeks, and there were a great number of transitions that happened throughout the entire school year. And so moving forward with a virtual school, we wouldn't want to continue that model. We would want a year-long commitment. And so knowing that, parents still said that they had interest in that type of a program. For intermediate and middle school, the number was a little bit lower, but we sent it to a larger number of parents. We sent it to nearly 900 people. So anyone who had been enrolled in virtual at any point in the year received the questionnaire. And so the responses we got back, some of those students have been back in school face-to-face since December. So we knew the number would be a little bit higher about going back to face-to-face. So the research in the current models, people were doing virtual school before the pandemic, and so there are some good models out there and some best practices. So we've been looking for commonalities in those. And the thing that we found that we find interesting is that districts have asked parents to identify a learning coach for their student, which is a parent that helps with the accountability piece at home. So if the teacher can't be there with the child at home to remind them to turn in work or focus on this or take a break at this time or find a good study station, the adult is the one that you work with to help coordinate those pieces, especially for our younger students. We thought that was a great idea. The year-long commitment is certainly something those other models look at. They also streamline courses that are best fit for the virtual setting. The last year we offered everything because that's what kids expected and signed up for the previous year, and we didn't want to change their 4-year plan based on a pandemic year with something that we were doing the best we could at the time with the information that we had. We also are looking to see the pros and cons of identifying a virtual school as an independent campus and the accountability measures, and we'll know more as the pending legislation comes out with changes and accountability measures. So we also looked at teacher and campus and district concerns. We know that we need to eliminate, based on that feedback, concurrent teaching because it's incredibly difficult for teachers, but also difficult for students because there's less committed time for that particular individual student and possibly their needs. We know that we need a testing center so that we can help the validity, reliability, and the fidelity, really, of tests that we give, and also screeners, so that we want to know in the elementary ages, when you do a screener, you want to know what does the student know right now on their own without any outside help, so that we know where to build in all of those skills. So this would help us assure that. We know that learning loss and credit loss are immediate concerns, so we'll be working on that in the brick and mortar school as well as considering that in the virtual learning setting. We believe that there are students that are more successful, and we can identify attributes of those learner profiles so that we know we have learners that are a good fit for either the virtual setting or maybe they are a better fit for face-to-face. And we feel like we can do that through some surveys and things like that with students. And then we're looking at extracurricular participation. So right now, moving forward, there would probably not be that outside participation because we would look for those opportunities where it fits best with a true virtual environment. So our vision and recommendations moving forward would be that we believe that Midway has a diverse student population and that we do have students that would thrive in that virtual learning environment. In fact, there's 1,200 students in that environment right now. We believe that the virtual learning setting is an innovative practice, and it's caused us to examine more in our educational setting and look at teaching and learning and what's truly needed and student needs. It's made us do that more than anything that's come through education probably in 100 years, and we want to continue to look at those innovative practices. We believe that this is an opportunity to serve students and families, and it may just be the next generation of differentiation. So we do different things to help students learn in different modalities, and we believe this may be one of those ways to offer individualized, personalized education. We also feel like we're a great environment to do this. We have a robust technology program and resources. We're accustomed to those practices. Our teachers are trained and supported, and we believe that we have the capacity to create an excellent virtual learning environment. So our recommendations would be some type of application so that we know we have the right students in the right place, a year-long commitment so that we can make less transition moments for students along the way and for our teachers. We want to identify those student aptitude pieces to make sure that they're a good fit for the system and the setting. We want to identify learning coaches in each home so that we have a parent contact and advocate for that student. We know that concurrent teaching is not a great option for our teachers or our students. That would mean a dedicated teacher for those, either an elementary virtual class or a virtual period in our secondary environment. And then we want to provide and focus in on those teachers that are delivering that training or that instruction for the virtual school and provide additional training and technology for those teachers so they have the right tools to do the job. So we think there's a need for two phases. One that's immediate, because we do still have pandemic and safety concerns probably that are going to influence some parents' decision, and it may not be a true educational environment that they choose. It may just be a safety environment that they choose. We know that that's a short-term, probably transition thing. We also know that learning loss and probably credit loss are something that we're talking about because we're recovering from the last year and a half. So that's probably also a short-term piece that we need to address. And then beyond that, we want to look at a long-term sustainable option for students and families in Midway ISD. Do you have questions? Oh, I should add, there is a virtual and hybrid school accelerator program that TA has rolled out. It does not offer funding, but it is a partnership with a resource provider, and we've applied for this and interviewed for that a week ago Monday. We were hoping to find out this Monday if we were accepted into that program for additional resources, and it's planning and framework, and then working with a cohort of people that are in the same work. So they have until the 21st to let us know if we're in that cohort of folks or not. Okay, now questions, sorry.
Susan, you look like you've got a question.
I do, but I thought I beat Rick to pushing my button. Okay. One of the questions, I like the fact that you would do a questionnaire to identify students that have the aptitude to do the virtual schooling. So what ideas have you thought about if the student doesn't have that aptitude to really succeed at virtual school, but the parents really want their student, or the student really wants to do virtual school? How will we handle that type of situation?
So I believe that we're going to have some options in what comes through the legislature and what is recommended through TEA. In both House and Senate bills, there were options for a return to brick and mortar schools if there was not a successful time in the virtual school. And right now we have great data on it because some people have tried it the entire year or tried it and weren't successful and tried it again and still weren't successful. So we have good data right now. You know, down the line, we might have to give an extended grace period to let them try it and improve after we've targeted some areas that are still major needs. But right now, it looks like that legislation would have some ability for the district to say, this is not a successful environment for you. You need to come back to our brick and mortar school.
Okay, a couple questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
So you alluded to percent of successfulness. So out of our 1,200 students, how many would you say are successful?
The elementary students have been very successful in their setting where they have a dedicated teacher. It's harder to track successful with your high school students that are spread out over eight teachers.
Great.
We're making up credits. We can
the
pull
other
data,
part
but
that's
it's more difficult.
Yeah, the other part that's difficult to measure this year is the back and forth. We've had students that for 6 weeks have been virtual, then they've come face-to-face, they've gone back virtual. And the other, though, we did require, and many students around the beginning of the second semester, based on data and based on their performance, they were required to come back face-to-face.
That's right.
And so now, as Dr. Odejima in one of her slides was demonstrating the smaller number of true virtual right now. I think you will see, if you'll go back, if you look at that slide, that high number of high school, I do not anticipate that because it's not this back and forth issue of being able to change these 6 weeks. The other is a much more limited number of electives and in this model. And thirdly would be our decision about extracurricular, which right now we're leaning on no.
Right.
You're limited in extracurricular, and that will change a lot of secondary students' decisions.
Well, and that's one of my questions, if there's going to be a parity of offerings. It wouldn't seem like we would offer the same amount of courses. That would get
That's
challenging.
Right, we would pare that down.
Okay. You also said something about testing fidelity, which I've heard some of that from some of my students in my house. So could certainly see that being a challenge. Has there been any thought given to a different weighting for online classes versus in-person classes when it comes to academic?
I know that next year we've looked at offerings that are less of the AP and more of dual credit as far as an advanced track, because the dual credit classes are all online at this point for the ones that our students, even our face-to-face students, are taking, that advanced track that way. So that's one option that we could look at closely. There are virtual schools, though, that offer AP coursework. So it would be a matter of, do we think we can control the elements that we have most concern with, like the testing pieces, so that you felt like it was fair on both sides. And if it's not, the dual credit option is always there.
And that was the recommendation about a testing center, that they physically still come in.
Right, yeah. Okay, so assuming we do a great job, we put together a great program, what's going to be our policy on taking virtual transfers into the district?
So we're waiting on legislative action to see what that looks like. There's a lot of talk back and forth about whether or not you can attend a virtual school outside of your district. Some of the reasoning is because for example, there's a virtual school now in Houston ISD, and Dallas ISD students, like 300 of them, attend this school in Houston ISD. Well, if they don't do well in that virtual setting in Houston ISD, they come back to a Dallas ISD brick and mortar school. And Dallas ISD would rather create their own virtual learning environment so they knew the students and knew what was going on and could track that and then provide resources before they brought them back to their own brick and mortar schools. So we'll see how that comes out. But that's sort of the thought now is if I'm going to educate my students in a virtual environment, but it doesn't work, I want them to come back to my school.
I
We
could
do
see
take
our-
transfers though, so I mean, that looks like it's going to be an option.
Right, and I could see in our educational ecosystem here where we have 18 different school districts in McLennan County, and most of those are smaller districts that probably aren't going to have the resources to pull this off as
Right.
well as we are. That could be a high percentage of, or a high number of folks that would want to transfer
Would have
in.
interest. I know
Yeah.
that we're the only school district in Region 12 that applied for the Virtual Hybrid School Accelerator Program.
Yeah. Okay, last question, maybe. So right now, we're tracking about 15% or so of our student population is in the virtual world. And we think that's similar to what we would see if we had the option next year?
No, I think it'll be significantly less. I believe that the extracurricular participation will be a major change in
Right.
attendance. And I think we ask parents in those surveys, which way would you choose, back face-to-face full-time or 100% virtual?
Right.
And they chose, but then we also allowed them to comment, like what influenced your decision? And a lot of it was still things that at the time were up in the air. Will we wear masks? Will we not wear masks? So I think as we solidify more of those things about how normal operation will be face-to-face, people will make those decisions. And I think it'll be a smaller number.
And do you think the participation will still be larger in the elementary grades than the secondary grades?
Depending on the extracurricular piece and then also what we can build. Like, can we build an early college high school with a high school program where you have virtual core classes and then you attend dual credit classes so that you have a pathway when you graduate from Midway High School and you have, other credentials that you build up? Would that be something that a student was interested in and they would give up extracurricular participation to participate in that piece? That's something that you could actually do right now at Midway High School if you took the right dual credit courses. There's that option, and then with our new CTE facility, are there more options for certifications and things that they could come and participate? A little more of the hybrid option. So I think if we build it, they will come, right?
Right.
It's to fit the needs of the student body.
Well, in particular, I'm curious because right now we've got a demographic study that doesn't take into account virtual learners and how that would affect, our facility usage. And 10 or 15% is a big number when you start looking at how close we are in some of these schools. So I don't know how we estimate that, extrapolate our limited amount of data to try to add that into the
It's difficult to
discussion.
predict.
So, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we applied just to see with this technical support from the agency. But I think the agency's hands are tied based on the legislative session. We're not going to stand up a virtual school if the students aren't funded.
Right, absolutely.
Lay it out clear here.
Oh,
We
I
do not
totally agree.
receive
Yeah.
average daily attendance for every student the same as a face-to-face student. We can't do this. And so it's up to the legislature and to finish before May 31st comes to decide about this. I think one of our goals, as Dr. Odejima placed, was simply that we do have this robust technology. We do have it in place. We want to be sure we capture students before they then jump and not attend either, Midway and just get another off-market type of virtual setting. Because there will be plenty out there that they could choose from.
Yeah, they're advertising already. I heard an advertisement today at lunch,
To
listening to NPR.
Right, to grad
That's his
students.
online high school, yeah.
Right, online schools and things of that nature. So one of the things that excited me was looking at this phase 1 and phase 2 is on page, I think, 63 or so, was really not this coming school year, but the next. And really looking more, when Dr. Odejima was referring to the hybrid, there is, to me, such an opportunity possibly with the Information Technology Center renovations, knowing we have space and we have this non-traditional setting as it is, but also the possibility of students that want that type of setting could have some virtual hybrid courses, some career tech, as mentioned, work programs there that might be a nice laboratory, if you will, for more secondary hybrid programs. The other thing too that we didn't mention that I should say too, I think the legislature may also put into place grade level bands, if you will. There may be the situation where they say that you can offer virtual school but must start in either grade 3 and up, 4 and up. There's a lot of debate and discussion about the inappropriateness of virtual school for pre-K, K. You're learning to read, language acquisition, speech, things like that too. So there may be that we may not even be allowed, not have a virtual school until a little bit older. So didn't mean to confuse everyone about virtual school, because there's a lot of questions and we have the same questions you do. I'm just validating that fact that we just want to be our foot in the game, if you will, to see if this and what the legislature may do, because is one of Dr. Ojima's first slides is, we still have to be planning, even if we have to put this on hold, meaning maybe we don't get funded or not able to do it. They were still suggesting there's no way we could to produce a virtual program if we hadn't already started planning this, now for August, when we start school August 17th.
Well,
So
it's definitely the wise thing to do.
it's
So-
not for naught, but I do have similar concerns and questions. And as you said, the final piece is who will sign up? We got to know numbers, because now she's got to look at Ms. Glazman over there in HR, and we've got to work through our numbers of staffing to be able to do this. I think secondary schedules can work through it. As mentioned, if you saw that, where they have, let's say, a teacher teaches 6 sections, 3 or 4 of them are all face-to-face, they have enough students, they teach 1 or 2 on, quote, online classes. We could work through schedules that way, but it's that elementary and self-contained and how many they can do and things like that.
George, that goes into the one question. I was wondering if we've had time to put some pen to paper. So if we have a virtual school, it would be a new school. It would have a new CDCN number. So it would need to have its own principal, I assume, and it'd have to have all of that because it's an independent school.
She's already doing that.
I know, but what would be, have we talked about the cost? I mean, have we talked, because you'd have to,
Well,
if you have to hire more administrators, because on paper we have to have administrators for this new school.
Well, at this point, you're not pulling, it may or may not pull new students in the district. It may just redistribute students where they are. So it may
Okay.
not be new staff per se. It may be a change in setting for some staff.
Okay,
So for teachers, now administrators will see, just have to make that decision if it's a separate school or not. It may not be. It
right,
may-
we don't have to, but I was saying if we did go that route, to me, it looked like that would be more expensive, just because you'd have to have some things in
Right,
place
and
to
that
make
would
it
be
a
a
legitimate,
consideration looking at it.
yeah, legitimate independent school.
We'd have to come up with another name.
In another name,
which is
exactly, I was thinking the same thing.
Challenging enough as it is.
Oh, my gosh.
But hey, it's virtual, there's no zone.
It'll be-
There's no attendance zones.
That's
Just be
it.
Midway
Check.
Virtual
That one's
Independent
done.
School District.
This is a whole district.
Hey, so
I
I
have to have a
a,
little brevity here, folks.
Yeah,
So-
let's just all go virtual, everything's virtual. Yeah, okay.
Roland?
Thank you,
my-
Becky.
I'm sorry, are you-
No, I'm
go
done.
ahead, go
Thank
ahead.
so my question is to what degree does the board need to act or help you, and when does that happen? I'm looking at your timeline slide, that's sort of, I guess, one of the next ones in the rotation, but when would this come to us to sort of help you make decisions? Or would it?
After May 31st, probably,
Okay.
when we have to make some hard, concrete decisions.
Okay, but it would be sometime before August. I mean, we would have to look at a
Absolutely.
plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
we would need to know who's coming before then,
Right.
so we would need to look, in June, early June.
And obviously, this doesn't come into play down at the lower grade levels, but what's the administration thinking, obviously subject to the legislature, as far as extracurricular for students if we have some sort of virtual school? What are y'all looking at or not?
Many of the other groups have not necessarily had an extracurricular team of that virtual school that was own entity, but they have had clubs and things like that, because if there's not a safety concern, students can gather and do things. Some have esports teams.
But we do have concerns, readily, want to say about participating on campus, meaning too, for safety and security, like if you have, let's just use our high school. They're virtual, but they're popping in for a choir class or popping in for football or basketball or sport, things like that, back and forth, things like that. It's just a nightmare to think of security there at the high school. So that's been our major roadblock about extracurricular, is Dr. Odejima said, certainly virtual clubs and other activities and social ways for students to get together, that would be very important. We would work on social and emotional programs, learning with kids too. So they would have some, but certainly not the same as offered face-to-face.
A lot of work, thank you.
Andy?
Just one question. The one thing that was nice this year was we went through quarantine 3 times, and so we were able to sample it briefly each time. It was nice that kids could just, step into and keep going. Will it be, if we don't have the full virtual school, will there still be a mechanism for kids to alternate into that? Or since this is a full year expectation, if you are face-to-face, will it accommodate for illnesses?
I would imagine we're going to have to continue to have that piece where we supplement outside of the face-to-face classroom for as long as we have to quarantine.
Well, not just quarantine, but, anything, the flu, or you break your ankle, or something where you're just, laid out for a while. It was a nice thing that maybe it existed before, we just never had done it, and so it was very easy to do.
I don't want to speak for the staff, but I think from the pandemic and what we've learned is that we can. We have the tools,
Certainly.
we have the technology, we have a better way now to keep students engaged when they may have extended illnesses. Right. Before it was go home and maybe pick up the packet or pick up work, things like that. I think we have a much better way now.
Very good. Thank you.
Very good. There she is, revised protocols, ma'am.
I just had to say I was sorry for Wesley because nobody clapped for him. Rudy has the biggest claps I've ever. Thank you, Wesley.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I am glad to be up here with you today to talk about some revisions. Throughout the year, we monitored things pretty closely and we made revisions as necessary. But at this point, these are some major revisions. And I'm happy to report these to you today. One of them is going to take board action, and that's in the consent agenda later. And then you also will hear me talk about a SHAC recommendation, and that was in your information item earlier. So we will continue close monitoring for sure. We'll be looking towards those research-based entities and also certainly TEA, UIL, the things that we have to answer to. Texas School Safety Center is another one. We're going to continue collaboration, of course, with our local health district and Deanne Klipis, who is our coordinator for student support health services. We'll be doing that. We don't know at this time about contact tracing and quarantines. That will be guidelines given to us from CDC, from TEA, also from our local health district. But at this time, we're going to want, through summer school, for people to let us know if they've been exposed to COVID, or if they have COVID, obviously, and they would not stay there at school during summer school. And we will have one nurse on duty, that would be Deanne Klipis, and she's just gonna work closely with those students and their families for summer school. So of course, we're gonna continue to revise as necessary if there's anything that we need to do to protect health and safety for all of our staff and for our students. So regarding mask-related requirements, you may have seen that today the governor made a new ruling that as of June 4th, schools could not require people to wear masks, but we already had this on the board agenda. So our recommendation is to, by formal board action tonight, to end the mask requirements and the mandates beginning May 28th, which is the last day of school, but at the end of the school day. We are proud, very much so, of the efforts of a lot of people throughout the district that we started in August. We never had to shut down. There are many schools throughout the nation who still haven't even opened. So because of all the efforts, we felt that it was really necessary when we could have a month ago or 3 weeks ago said, okay, let's lift this mask mandate. We just felt like it was the best interest of everybody to continue that mask mandate through the end of the school year. The SHAC agreed, we discussed that. Dr. Pope-Joy's on that committee and he brought it up and we talked about it in our last SHAC committee. And they all recommended the same thing. There were some on the committee that said, we don't wear masks anymore, but they agreed that in the school setting, because we cannot monitor and keep people at a safe distance, there are a lot of students in our schools and in our hallways. And so we do want to lift that, though, at the end of the school year, going into the summer. It would be optional. People would still be able to wear those if they want to. And we want to have a culture of acceptance. If people choose to continue to wear the mask, then that's going to be okay. And we're going to be sure that people feel that way. So other revisions, we're not going to have any capacity limitations for any of our campus or extracurricular events. This is for the summer and then also going into the fall. We're going to remove the dashboard at this time, but we will continue to notify when there is a positive case on a campus. So to be for that campus or for any student group, if there's a positive case, just so that the parents would be aware. And then this summer, we will reconvene all of those Safe Start Task Force working groups, and you have the list of those there. And that's simply to review the most current and relevant information at that time. It will probably be middle of July before we'll convene, but we would be able to give you any updates at the July board meeting. So some of the safeguards that we're going to have in place is what I said a little bit earlier. It still is an expectation to report if you have COVID symptoms or if you've had exposure to the virus, because that's what we do for any communicable disease, is we want to be sure that parents don't send students to school if they're running fever, if they have flu, if they have strep, any of those types of things. We are encouraging staff and any eligible students to be vaccinated as soon as possible. And then, of course, we're going to continue the focus on hand washing. I think in the past, you know, we knew it was important to wash hands, obviously, but we really didn't give the time in the day to do it. And that's been another COVID bonus, is that we have concentrated on those health type things, given time for hand washing before lunch, when you come back in from playing outside, things like that. And then, of course, the enhanced cleaning we want to continue throughout the district. So, are there any questions at this time or comments?
Just one, Dr. Johnson, when you're talking about the vaccinations too, I have a conversation starting on Thursday. As the district staff know, we've worked with Ascension Providence when we had our first staff clinic. They're reaching out too. I believe there's going to be a concerted effort across the Waco community with Waco ISD and Midway and the school systems to possibly have other shot clinics for students, just focused on students. And so I think throughout the summer, there'll be that possibility as well, as you mentioned, for students that are qualified, depending on Pfizer or Moderna, their qualification of age to do that. Also, locally too, we've had a great collaboration with Walgreens. Walgreens did another final drive with us here for staff, and we could even include staff and or their family. And so they were a great partner, and not an advertisement for Walgreens, but they do have vaccines, and it's very easy and to get one even there at the pharmacy there at Walgreens too. So all of those things would be very helpful to work with us. So all those things would be, again, part of that, again, continued education about it and provide opportunities for the vaccine.
I've got a couple of questions, if I could, real quick. One is a pretty easy one. May 28th is an early release day, and graduation is that night. Would our action be essentially removing mask requirements and capacity restrictions for graduation?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Second question is, and I have had some conversations with a couple of principals too, just over the last month or two. What are our plans, or what do we think we can do to help bring parents back onto campuses in terms of volunteers, or in terms of eating lunches with their kid at their birthday or things like that? What do we think we'll be able to do?
I think there will be fewer restrictions for sure as far as volunteerism. We did, if you look through the information from the SHAC committee, it was a recommendation from the SHAC committee. They've been talking about it for years. But this year gave us a true picture of what it could look like if we limited visitors on campus during the lunch hour. And to be honest, every campus principal saw that as a COVID bonus because of the crowding in the cafeterias, because of the time that it takes for staff to accept food on campus, to get it disseminated then to the students, particularly at our secondary levels. And then the other thing would be, there was one more thing I was just thinking of, just a little more bright, just kind of the safety concerns of taking our eye off of what we need to be doing during these 2 hours of lunchtime, and instead spending a lot of time with delivering lunches. So that was a recommendation that came from the SHAC committee to allow campus principals and leaders to make a decision on whether or not that would be allowed, and to offer it on a limited basis, not just an everyday basis, but for special occasions. So that will be something that we will look at administratively this summer. That would be kind of an administrative guideline, and not that every campus would do it differently, but it's something that we could revisit later.
Okay, it's fair.
But not volunteer, certainly there PTA involvement, volunteer
Yes, for sure.
involvement. We certainly going to continue.
We talked about, bringing back the meetings, the ARD meetings, the 504 meetings back on campus, offering those face-to-face. But there are parents that said, wow, this has been great. I don't have to leave work as much. So they would like to continue a virtual option if possible. So I see it being a hybrid model.
Hybrid. I know from my standpoint, we've been real involved in the Watchdogs program on different campuses, and just being able to be
Yes.
there, reading with kids, helping with kids in PE classes or whatever is something I really like to do. So I know a lot of
Absolutely.
parents do.
We miss our watchdogs. We also miss very much our mentoring programs that we have with some of our local churches. We want to continue increasing our mentoring throughout the district. And so for sure, we would like for all of those things to continue.
So last question, and this is a hard one because I know it's a kind of a hot button issue these days for a lot of people, and it's why I feel I need to ask it. The language around encouraging vaccinations, I am hearing some concerns from parents that say, is this step one towards step two being requiring vaccinations, either for staff or for students? And
Sure.
they're pretty uniformly opposed to that. So what can we do in terms of language to make it clear that the district supports individuals, families' decisions about vaccination?
So the school district would never be in a situation to add that to a vaccination list that is given to us from the state. At this time, we've heard of no addition from the state or no plans to add the COVID vaccine to the list of vaccinations. We have the updated list as of now. So what I would say is we encourage people to get vaccinated. We have for years in the public school system, and we would continue to do so. I've had parents that have called with concerns before because we do publish that very widely, and all of our nurses encourage people to be immunized. Excuse me. So I would continue to say that it would be encouraged along with the other vaccinations, but it's not something that we would require.
Nor is it required for staff.
For staff either, right. Now, one of the things that I will tell you is we're already having to make plans for if quarantines are continued. I'm sorry. If they are continued, then there would be that possibility that if you have a vaccination card, that you could show that and you're not going to be quarantined. So there might be a chance that we would go kind of old school with, if parents would want to provide that, then they were considered a close contact. The nurse would have that on file and would pull the name, call them Whit, your daughter, look up Whit, and then say she had her vaccination, so she would remain at school and would not be quarantined. But we just don't have all those rules right now. But from what I'm hearing is that quarantines may still be something that we'll have to do. Certainly not like this year.
I just want to say thank you once again. We've done this before, but the school year's at an end. We did stay open all year, and just thank you to George and all the
Yes.
administrators and the staff, and also our parents and all the students that followed our guidelines and made us have as best a year we could with the situation we had, and that we never had to close. And it was a lot of hard work, extra hours, sweat and tears, and stress. So
Yes.
thank you to all the staff, the teachers, and the parents, and even the students.
Yeah, our theme this year was #Stronger_Together, and there's no doubt. I mean, our campus principals are just to be commended. I don't know how they did it, but they did. But then to think all the different pieces that you just mentioned, it was everybody working together that kept our doors open. So, thank y'all.
Thank you, Jeannie.
It's an applause.
We're gonna applaud for her too, yes. Hazardous routes, buddy, you're gonna tell us everything we need to know about them, right?
Yes, sir. But I want to start with a disclaimer. I forgot I left my mask up here when I was up here before, but I have been fully vaccinated. But I'm going to put it in my pocket so I won't forget again. Also, before I start, I would like to recognize Mr. Robert Anderson. Stand up, Robert, so they all see who you are. June 15th, Robert began with the district as the transportation coordinator. He is doing an awesome job, and he's been an awesome addition to our staff. In his first year, we've thrown at him the dual start time, COVID, and now we're throwing additional hazardous routes at him. And he just takes it all in stride and will be doing a great job with it. So thank you, Robert, for the great job you do. If you get a chance, encourage him for the good job that he's doing. So each year in May, the board approves current designated hazardous areas. And what this does is allows us to draw state funding on the mileage. It's about $1 a mile is what we draw for these hazardous areas. We are limited. We can have no more than 10% of our regular mileage designated as hazardous. Right now, we're at about the 2 or 3% range, so we do have some room to add some hazardous areas. Okay, so I gave her a revised version of this today, and so it's not what you may be looking at, or it's not what was in your packet. Mr. Witt found some things that I had overlooked, and so we added them. And also, on the consent agenda is this resolution, and since it's changed because of the additions, then I think that's probably going to be pulled off so you can vote on it with the additions. So we are proposing to add some hazardous areas at Castleman Creek, the area that will be added. And I have a green pointer here, and I know it doesn't show up on y'all's screen, but it would be this area right here. Here's Hewitt Drive, and there's the post office on Hewitt Drive, and you come down, and there's the CEFCO and then Ritchie Road that goes up towards the City Hall. So we're recommending adding this area right here because these kids don't have a safe way to get to the sidewalk. The sidewalk comes all the way down to the post office, because they'd have to cross Ritchie Road. These kids can go through this neighborhood and get to the sidewalk that goes all the way to school. So at Castleman Creek, we're recommending adding that, and so it only changed the wording on it a little bit to add these words, which are south of Ritchie Road within 2 miles. So that's all that was changed at Castleman Creek.
Hey, real quick, buddy, could you give us the definition of hazardous that you're applying here?
So if it's dangerous for them to cross a road where there's not a crossing guard, any area that it's not safe for the kids. Now, the state did add, a couple of years ago, they even added if there's an area that's designated as having gangs in it, that you can designate that as a hazardous area. But any place where it's not safe for them to cross the road or walk along the road without crossing guards or without a designated walkway. And if you have any other questions, stop me as we go along, no problem. So this is an overview of River Valley. There's 4 areas that we would like to add at River Valley. One is, this is the Twin Rivers area. This is the Meadowlands Estate area. This is Hidden Valley 1 and part of Hidden Valley 2. And we'll look at each of those individually. This is the Meadowlands Estates. Here's Highway 84. This is Spiegelville Road, and this is Meadowland Estates. And what we would probably do is we would probably just pick like this street and run the bus through there and have designated stops on that street, and then the kids would catch the bus at their designated stop. All of our routes really have designated stops and not door-to-door service. There's just no way to have door-to-door service for every kid. But that's how we would probably attack Meadowlands Estate. Twin Rivers, a similar thing. A route possibly coming in on 84 could come here on Twin Rivers Drive and make that circle with designated stops on that circle, then back out to Spiegelville Road, or perhaps even here on Kings Row, and just pick up these kids right here in this area. This road, okay, here is River Valley Intermediate School. This road right here is Oak Road. There are no sidewalks on Oak Road. This is Spiegelville Road. There are no sidewalks on Spiegelville Road. So what we're proposing is to add, this is Hidden Valley 1, and we would probably have stops at the end of each of these streets because there's no way really for them to walk to school. This area here, they walk already, and they come through a fence at the back of the school here and come in. This Oak Road goes on out to Hidden Valley 2, and once you get into Hidden Valley 2, part of those, all the kids in the back, they're already past 2 miles. The 2 miles stops somewhere right in there. So we would probably just add a designated stop here at the beginning of Hidden Valley 2 to pick up these kids that are here. I put this up there because I referenced this street right here, Sunnydale Drive. I didn't know if you would know where that street is. River Valley School is just right up here on the left, just past that. Here's Oak Road. Right here is the new traffic light that's put in on Spiegelville Road. Spring Valley, sorry. Robert and I went and we were driving around the neighborhoods at Spring Valley the other day, and it's really frustrating on how some of these communities, how the streets were laid out. You know, I spent time in West Texas where every street goes north and south or east and west. That's not the way it is here. And it really made it difficult, but here's what we've come up with. All streets within 2 miles of Spring Valley Elementary and north of State Highway 2113, which is Spring Valley Road, and east of First, where the home campus is Spring Valley Elementary. And here's the change that we added today, because First Street actually stops on North Old Temple. And so I changed it, it's not on this slide, but it's on the resolution, to north of First Street, so that'd be all of this area, and north of Old Temple. And then this little street right here, you'll see that I added to number 12, where I had Black Diamond listed. And then everything south of Spring Valley Boulevard. All of this area over here, that's Surrey Ridge. They're already farther than 2 miles. Right now we have one regular bus route that leaves Spring Valley Elementary. And those kids, most of those kids, there's 1 or 2 that are over 2 miles that are back up in here, but most of those are the Surrey Ridge kids. These hazardous routes will probably add at least 2 more routes. It's needed, and right here is the elementary, and I'll tell you another situation that we have right across the street. There's a building that used to be a daycare that has a pretty large parking lot in it. We have parents that bring their kids and drop them off in that parking lot so that the crossing guard can help them across Spring Valley. And then in the afternoon, they come there and park, and their kids walk across Spring Valley and get in the car with them and leave. Because once you cross right here where that crossing guard works the highway, there's no sidewalk that go, and you have to walk on the side of the road down to either this next street here or this next street up here. So that's why we are designating all of the streets that are south of Spring Valley. And then here's the other street that I mentioned, Black Diamond. It's just a street with a cul-de-sac. You can't get to this other part of the neighborhood to walk the back streets to school. You would have to come out on Spring Valley if you were going to walk that or ride your bike. And, you know, and that's another thing, that the 2 mile rule is not saying that you have to walk. What it's saying is that if you live within 2 miles, then you, the parent, are responsible for safe transportation for your kid to and from school. But we know that these are some changes that we need to make. I'll tell you, Robert is very nervous about it, but he's going to make it work because he's that type of guy.
If you don't mind, then, Mr. Freeman, I'm glad you said that about the 2 mile. I hope everyone understands the 2 mile it's not set by the school district. It's not some number we pick up out of the blue. We just decided on 2 mile. It's the formula for funding of transportation. And so we are funded formula. We turn in the mileage every year and the ridership and things. It's complicated, but that's the way that the state funds schools. They do provide partial funding for districts when we do designate these hazardous areas, but it's not the full funding. And so that is the issue. And like you said, it's the 2 miles decided. It's been the same since, to my knowledge, since 1984. And the funding for transportation has not received any changes since 1984. Regarding a long time in terms of some of the forms, Mr. Brooks may correct me, maybe recently they were adjusted somewhat, but they are slow to adjust any funding for our transportation enterprise. And so this to say it's not an arbitrary 2 mile, like you said, it was the number, the mileage set, and then after that point, responsibility fell on the family to get the child to school. And so
I will correct you though, and there was one change in funding. Used to, when you filled out your transportation report, if you could certify that you didn't have any standees on a bus, you got an extra 5%. And so of the 1,065 districts in the state, guess how many of them certified they had no standees? All of them. And so the legislators just said, well, we'll just change the rule where you can't have standees, and they kept the 5%. So there has been one change. It was lowered 5%. That was sometime in the mid-90s.
I stand corrected. Sorry.
Stand.
But as Mr. Freeman has demonstrated here, the number 1 through 6 had been, and at the top, 1, 2, and 3, and then 1 through 6 had been previously, board members may recall, these had been in the board packet. They had been consent items in the past several years, but these are the things after Mr. Freeman and Mr. Anderson analyzed the areas, 7 through 12 are what we're recommending, as you saw as an agenda item for additional hazardous routes in the district. And I think you mentioned about Mr. Tullis's question about hazard. The other consideration too is I think we have to look at is construction. And as we know, around the River Valley conversion to a middle school, there's quite a bit of construction too. We were promised on I think not me as a district, but as a community, that Spring Valley was in the plans to be redone, and supposedly turning lanes and sidewalks and bicycle lanes. But pandemic hit, that project then was placed on hold, and then it lost funding, and it no longer was a priority with the MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's a high priority, but it's not in the funding cycle. And so many of you in that area might have noticed work did begin, but then it all had to stop and get patched up. So that's also another factor. There's a lot of patchwork there on that Farm to Market Road, Spring Valley too. So that also plays into, also into consideration. So certainly we're hopeful that that master plan of Spring Valley will occur at some point. But I know the service roads, frontage roads along Highway 6 with Amazon coming in between that area and Richland Mall, it has now become the priority.
That project is called the Mall to Mall project. That's like a $50 million project, and so the MPO moved all their funding over to that. And like you said, the Spring Valley expansion is a priority if more funding becomes available, perhaps through stimulus, but if it doesn't, then it'll probably be 2025 before the funding is provided for those additions. But in these changes, what the black print is the current or last year's, and then what is in red is what we're proposing to add.
So you said that we were at 2 to 3% of our mileage was hazardous. With these changes, where do we land? Do we know?
We don't know yet because we haven't done all of these routes.
So we're confident we're less than 10%?
I think we'll be less than 10%, but And that's one of the things that makes Robert nervous, is he knows he's going to have to come up with all these routes. And there's really many unknowns because we don't know how many kids will ride. You know, right now, of our eligible students, is it about 35% of them that ride? So, you know, it could be a large number, it could be a small number. We don't know. I know, like at Twin Rivers, there's about 5 or 6 kids there right now that walk down Spring Valley Road home. I've seen that. And it's Spiegelville Road, yeah. And so we really don't know. I'm pretty sure we will stay under the 10%, but we really don't know.
Hey, buddy, something that would be, I think, pretty helpful, and I know it's a long-term solution, but I once served on the planning and zoning in Woodway, and I never would have known this information. Like, as we're going through and improving subdivisions and looking at plats, this never would have crossed my mind. And we're kind of in this unprecedented time of growth and new housing developments coming online. I would suggest you get on the agenda in Woodway and Hewitt and Waco, and just give them the information to say, hey, here's some things to consider when you guys are thinking about subdivision development.
How it affects us, how it affects buses and bus routes.
Yeah,
And sidewalks.
I trust
Yes.
they have
You
no
know,
idea.
A perfect example too is if you go down Spring Valley Road, they've built 15 duplexes down there before you get to I-35. Well, you know, there's no sidewalks.
Yeah. So anyway, I throw that out as a suggestion that would be well received, I would think, by those entities, so.
Other, Andy?
But is it probably impossible to answer, but do you have a ballpark of how many additional buses or drivers or ballpark cost?
Just ballparkish, what Robert and I are thinking, that probably at least 4 more buses and 4 more drivers. You know, and we have a hard time finding drivers. And so, you know, it could be that, Mary Lou, we need to increase the pay for bus drivers. But just ballparkish, we were thinking probably at least 4.
What does a bus cost?
About $115,000 to $20,000 each.
500,000 in buses and then
And then
extra
the
drivers.
additional salaries. And we, you know, we will draw a little bit more funding because we'll get the dollar per mile for the hazard miles that we add, but it'll be a small percentage of what the actual cost will be, which that's typical for transportation anyway. The state's gonna give you a small percentage of what it actually costs.
All right, then. Very good. Thank you, buddy. We
Okay.
appreciate that.
Now, we're going to go on to one more part of my presentation that it's part of my presentation, but it's kind of a separate issue. And this is to deal with Spring Valley Elementary also. As was mentioned, you know, they're going to have the construction on Spring Valley Road. The plans are to have a turn lane all the way from Hewitt Drive down to I-35. And then the shoulders will also, it'll have a 10 or 12-foot shoulder on each side. During that construction process, of course, it's going to get more dangerous. Right now, if you go over there before school turns out, we have cars that are stacking up in Spring Valley, on Spring Valley Drive. Vale Highlands, which you'll see in a moment, is a street near the school district. It's stacked up, and it's very dangerous. And so I've come up with some ideas, or with some help of some others, of maybe a way to alleviate some of that. This is one of the shots from TxDOT's plans for the improvement on Spring Valley Road. And what I wanted to point out here is, if you can see, this is Tahoe Trail. And this is the street that is just east of Spring Valley Elementary. Spring Valley's here. And you can see right here, that's where they have the turning lane beginning. That's currently where the turning lane starts. We do have a turning lane there now. And cars some days already back up past Tahoe Trail. So when you get back that far, you're in the road. You're out of the turning lane. This is another sheet from the TxDOT drawings, and I wanted to point out, they are planning to put a sidewalk. And if you see right here, this is Castleman Creek. That's the actual creek that flows down through there, and there's a bridge across that creek. So they're gonna put sidewalks on both sides of Spring Valley, all the way down past that bridge. They decided to stop it at that bridge. And then on the west end, it will stop at Vale Highlands, which is the street. Okay, so here's Spring Valley Elementary, here's Vale Highlands. So that sidewalk will start here, and it'll go all the way down to Castleman Creek on both sides of there. But what I've gotten some numbers on, these are preliminary numbers. Walker Partners helped me put these together. But right now, we currently have this drive that goes around behind Spring Valley, and it just stops right there. And I was told this was built so that we would have a fire lane all the way around the school. What we would like to propose is to extend this to our current driveway right here. Right now, we have a gate right here, and so all the traffic comes in here and circles around. We have this entrance to Spring Valley Road. If we could connect that, that would help with stacking traffic. And then I'd also like to add this right here, and this is on property that the school already owns. Some of you may remember, but sometime in the past, the school bought this property, and we have property all the way to Angel Fire, which is the street back here on the back of Spring Valley. If we could maybe build that driveway. Just preliminary estimates, that driveway would be about $300,000, and this one would be about $200,000. The principal also would love to have an additional parking lot right here. There's a gravel parking lot there. She would like to get that paved. So for future plans, you may see this come up, but this would, if we had these two driveways right here, this one and this one, it would give us this loop. All of the cars that are stacking right now on Spring Valley Road and on Vale Highlands could all stack on our property and not in the street. So there's...
Have we had any incidents that you know of?
I don't know of any incidents, but I do know that Chief Devlin, the chief of police for Hewitt, went over there one day and was there when school was out, and he talked to me. He said, "We need to do something." He said, "This is dangerous."
Yeah, I was actually there yesterday at pickup in the rain, and there were 2:45. There were already 40 cars lined up on Spring Valley Road, and they back up from Vale Highlands and form the lane next to that lane of traffic. So now traffic gets pushed out into the turn lane or into oncoming traffic just to go around them right now.
Mm-hmm. And then you have some trying to exit, and they're trying to see both ways, and some try to go left, some try to go right. Yeah, it's not good. So that's not an action item. That's a for your information item of just some things that we may be looking at in the future as we carry on with the bond program. And you asked earlier about how much money we had left. This is something that maybe some of that money we have left over we can spend on.
Do we have any other campuses that have a stacking issue? I know River Valley does. Along that road.
River Valley does, and River Valley got worse because of the construction, because we had to shut down the third spot over on the north side. When that opens back up with all of that parking lot that we're putting in there, that should solve the River Valley problem. If you come by South Bosque, I mean, they stack all the way up to the administration building, but they're on the service road. They're not on a main thoroughfare like Spring Valley is. So yes, I can't tell you there's no more, but I can tell you this is a bad one that we need to pay attention to right now.
And this is one we were just talking about because we do have the land, which is don't necessarily have availability of land and partial loop already there, and so that's why just examining that, it could be a way to get some cars off the road, and at least that first leg, step one, I call it, getting that first leg completed there in the front.
That would help a lot. And the other one would be fantastic. Then you have a big loop with Angel Fire, you said, in Bill
Yes.
Highlands and Tahoe, all around the school.
Yes, I think if you had to prioritize the three, you would prioritize number one to be that first connection of the existing loop, and then priority two would be back to Angel Fire, and then priority three would be the parking lot.
It's also
Any other
nice because
questions?
we control everything, you know,
Yes,
you're not
yes, sir.
dealing with
We control
TxDOT or the city or the county. So.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? All right, very good. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate that. We'll have the resolution, as Buddy said, is on the consent agenda. We'll pull that off and take that up separately when we get there. Naming of the schools. Well, we'll take that up when we pull it off the consent agenda.
That's what she was asking.
Yes.
Stand up, get the blood flowing, and sit back down.
I'm
For
gonna
real,
stand
we need
up.
your brains
Yeah,
working on
like
this
that
one.
idea.
Big decisions coming up right now.
I like that idea.
Yes, thank you. Oh. Can I advance it? Can I advance it? Okay, well, yeah, but it's PDF. Okay. So, we've talked about renaming at least 2, if not 4, of our campuses that are under construction, and wanted to lead you through, hopefully, a decision-making process. We had some elementary students who have given names, so these are what you're choosing from now. It was very sweet. Mrs. Pruente's class at Castleman Creek, they were inspired by this project, and they decided to suggest as well. So they suggested Midway Meadows, Meadow Way, Creative Elementary, Empowerment Elementary, Perseverance Elementary, the Park Panthers, and Panther Place. They went on with some of my favorites were Velociraptor Elementary and Muggle Middle School. So, and I think we all liked Dr. K Middle School as well. But we said, we can't name it after people. Okay. Just keeping it lighthearted. It is a fun topic to talk about, and it's fun to talk about where we can go with the names. So the board has looked at a first reading of names last month. We received feedback from the board, got several people that gave information for ideas and suggestions. We also had some vetoes. We did the same process with the leadership team, with all the principals. We did the same process with the Spirit of Communications Council teacher representatives. And we were able to cull down to some finalists. And it is time to vote. So, board members, if you will please pull up that sheet that I have in front of you with a code, you can either, you can release your screens now. And you can either do it on your website, on the website, on your computer, or you can use your phone and use the QR code. So, all right, so we'll pull up.
Comes up.
Yeah, it comes up when they're choosing. So go to the elementary first, and then if you'll just open that presenter view.
Yes. It's elementary 7 is the one off of Ritchie Road. Elementary 7 is the one off of Ritchie Road.
Yes, ma'am, that one. Okay. And elementary 7, so we're starting with elementary 7, which is the new construction campus.
So if we don't like it, we hit skip? Is that the
If you don't like it, give it a 1.
Oh, give it a 1.
Mhm. The one is not my favorite.
Oh, okay.
5 is, this is the one. In between is if you have mixed feelings. And if you feel like none of these are worthwhile, then rate none of the above as a 5. That, yes, there were some new ones that came up, and there were some that got vetoed along the way. Refresh. We press refresh. Because I'm watching a live view here, and it's already going faster. All right, we have 6. All right. These are y'all's choices. So,
Are we locked into punctuation, like Park Hill being one word instead of two, or, okay, I was just
This
curious.
is fully discussable. So, at this point, my question is, are you in favor of going with the highest rated one, of going with Park Place Elementary for Elementary 7? Or would you like to continue discussing? How do you feel about that? Doing it as an interactive.
So we would have a PPE?
Mhm. We have a CCE, a WWE, and a PPE.
Everybody remember PPE?
They could go with PPE.
Plenty of
yes.
masks of PPE, right? Plenty of.
Park Hill got 1.5.
I thought none of the above was.
G Sports.
It's the number below it.
Oh,
Isn't it Park Hill that has
Oh.
the most votes? Park
yeah,
Hill?
Park Hill has the most.
Park Hill has the most votes. It's the number
Oh, it's
under
underneath it. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Park Hill.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Way to read the
Park
board
Hill,
member.
so it's non-PPE.
Yes, Park Hill. Are you good with Park Hill Elementary for elementary number 7?
So do we make a motion, or what do we do if we want to, I don't know.
Well,
How do we do
look,
this?
first I just want to discuss and
How do we
see
do this?
if
I don't
y'all,
know.
if you like this process and if you
Okay.
are comfortable with going with this, or if you want to open it to have a more open discussion. Do you like just voting on it, or would you like to discuss it more?
What? Well, Pam just texted me, let's see.
No, you snooze, you lose. No,
I think it
sorry,
falls
no.
under the gotta be
Proxies.
present to win category.
She just said have fun.
So in all seriousness, folks, you've seen the vote. We want to discuss it. Y'all want to continue with this process? And everybody can live with Park Place, or
sorry,
what's
Park
your
Hill.
place?
It's Park Hill.
I'm sorry, Park. Yeah,
I'm sorry about
that's
that.
Tullis's fault. He's got Park Place in my mind forever. I'll continue to say that
It
erroneously.
scored second favorite from our teacher group, and it scored fourth favorite from our leadership team.
Do we want to talk about one word or two at this point?
If we're talking about it, I think
Yes.
we should talk about it.
Yeah. Please, yes, please discuss.
Be 2 words.
I like 2 words. If we're going to do Park Hill, I like 2 words.
The teacher's favorite was Heritage Park. The leadership team and their favorite was also Heritage Park. But you get to choose. Those were actually, did not give you those ahead of time because those are tiebreakers.
Well, I like Park Hill the best, and I'm okay with it being 2 words.
Yeah, I'm good with, I like 2 words better than words. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Can do it.
And now we just add it to here, and then it goes into consent agenda? Okay. So.
No, it's not on the consent agenda. It is a separate item from the
A separate
consent
item,
agenda.
okay. So we'll say, we'll hold that Park Hill separate words for elementary 7. All right, ready for elementary 8? Here we go again.
PHE.
What, do we just refresh?
Then, sorry.
What do we do here?
All right, now you should be able, it should give you
Okay, I see
the
it.
option to
Okay.
move forward now. And if you'll click on, there you go. Thank you.
This is our current Woodgate, correct?
This is current Woodgate being renovated as elementary 8. It is receiving a new TEA code and history because it's changing from a middle school to an elementary, as categorized by TEA.
And dot above the word, no, below the word.
That's the dot below the words.
That's all 6 have come in. So that is Chapel Park in the running. Now, I did actually have to check. We didn't know if the road Chapel was named after a family. And so, shout out to Brian Simmons at the Texas Collection, Baylor. He helped me find out. And then I found this handy book that is Historic McLennan County, sponsored by a young Rick Toulis from 11 years ago, and in the book itself. And it turns out it is about this. Yeah, but they did it from underneath. They shot the photo from underneath, so it wasn't all right. What we were able to find out is that it was from Stanford Chapel, which is actually the cemetery right down the road. There was a Stanford Chapel cemetery, and they used the chapel as a first school in the area. When it was repaved in the 60s, they dropped the Stanford and just let it be Chapel Road. So it really is about a chapel, not a family named chapel. So it's vetted.
Bingo.
What were the other results?
The other results for elementary 8 were favorite from the teachers was Chapel or Chapel Park. At that point, it only lets me have 8 options, so I had combined those at that point. And by far and away, it was also the favorite for the leadership team. That was a clear winner for them, Chapel Park.
So I like the Chapel side. We just did Park Hill, so Chapel Park seemed kind of redundant.
Or their twin campuses, because they're opening at the same time. Also, Chapel Park is the name of the actual park next to it already from the city of Waco.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
That's good. I mean, it just means it ties into
It makes it look
the
like we own
actual
the park.
Well, there may be some opportunities for
There
collaboration.
really are. There are grant opportunities when you do collaborate, and they've already reached out and said in the neighborhood association as well. Would be
We're hopeful to actually have that be where it's part of our elementary, and our elementary is part of the neighborhood park as well. All right.
For directionally challenged people, like my wife, if you've got multiple things in that immediate area with the same name, that dramatically increases their ability to get there.
It was actually a request for Mr. Tolis last meeting. He said it helps. He likes the street name being a part of it. All right. So now let's go to the middle school name. So middle school number 1. And that is our current middle school. You see, I purposely didn't give the code out for the audience. It would be fun.
You mean for the audience to vote too?
Mhm.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
One more. There's 6. All right, we have all 6 in. If you want to press refresh one more time on yours. All right. Oh, somebody else voted. Somebody voted twice. Okay, so are y'all comfortable with keeping current middle school? Or does somebody want to speak out about multiple people seem to vote on the none of the above, that we wanted to look at another option? So does anyone want to talk about why they wanted another option? Or are y'all comfortable with going?
Yeah.
You don't like? Did you have another idea?
What did you think about Flat Rock Creek Elementary? I mean, we've got the river or the creek that runs behind here. I don't know, I was trying to, I would like to find a geographical connection.
I do like the geographical connections. Is there a bad connotation saying flat? We're talking, just, we're, rising school, we improve, we advance. Is flat an issue?
What about the White Rock saying you have
Flat's
the
not
other?
always bad. You like flat, nice flat road.
Yeah, I'll say to Susan's point about White Rock,
What
that
about the White Rock?
I think White Rock was on the list because I sent it or someone else
It
sent
was
it
on,
earlier.
it was on the elementary list.
But I didn't know if someone had sent that before I sent it
Mm-mm, no,
last
it
week.
was for
So
you. It was for you.
that actually came from a conversation with Joey Elderman at Baylor, geology professor, about is the Balcones escarpment run through Waco or is it the White Rock escarpment? So that's why I put White Rock on the list earlier too. So.
I-
It's the White
It's a-
Rock,
I did
It's-
put
it's the White Rock
Balcones
escarpment, yeah,
on
and it's
early lists,
appropriate.
and everybody vetoed it because of the distillery.
about Tony's.
But White Rock is the actual escarpment in Waco, so that's the.
I like White, I can't say that, White Rock, but I don't.
But we don't have to change either name at all.
They are staying current middle schools. They stay with their code from TEA. TEA already even classifies River Valley as a middle school. They keep their testing history, so we don't have to have it be a new school.
Have you done any research? Are there many districts that keep an original school name like this?
Yes.
We looked, even Belton today, they have Belton, Belton Heights, Lake Belton, North Belton, South Belton. They just keep it on everything.
And that's not confusing.
Yeah, and it's very
It's
confusing.
directional.
Now, we did ask our teacher representatives how they felt about changing the name, and they seemed fairly blindsided that that was even being considered, they didn't see why they would change their name. They also mentioned about like all the apparel and everything that already says Midway Middle School. You have to decide at what point do you like, oh, I stopped wearing this one and now I start wearing this one. And I think there's a timing issue since Midway Middle School will be renovated a year after everything else. Do we rename it when River Valley opens as a new middle school and it has to have a new middle school name, even though it's not getting renovated until the following year? You see what I'm saying? So all of a sudden they're moving on like normal, and then they are supposed to change their name in the midst of just regular stride of school.
So it could be a merch boon for the PTA, because they get to sell all new gear, right?
They do. They would. And certainly we would just need to talk about, signage and things like that we would have to replace and have a cost to replace
For the
those.
jersey vendors, for the sports teams and everything, it's a merch boom too.
Yeah.
And the thoughts about the heritage or the legacy were brought up on all of them. In particular for this middle school was just because in 2022, that's the district's 75th anniversary of existence. It was formed in 1947. And heritage or legacy is simply that particular school, as you know, was the former high school, just meaning a lot of alumni, a lot of memories of that central location of education was on that plat of land and that campus, that facility, that brick and mortar. And so it was really why that came about, of discussion of the current middle school changing, and the names were all there, but why you see legacy
And it was the old high school too.
and heritage in there because of the district's anniversary as well as just that particular campus's history.
Now the teacher group actually still rated legacy highest, then heritage, and then keeping current with 2.9, 2.8, and 2.7 in order. And then the leadership group chose heritage far and away.
I kind of feel like we can't necessarily make this decision until we make the River Valley decision, because I think if we leave one the same, it might make sense to leave the other, or if we change one, it might make sense to change the other, maybe. I don't know.
You want to take a look at middle school too? If you go ahead and go to the next slide. Middle school 2, current River Valley. Refresh one more time. Wow. How do you feel about keeping current?
Pretty close. Pretty close on that one.
I mean, I like the name, I just didn't know if it was confusing. I thought I could yell out. I still like the name River Valley, I just don't know if that's going to be confusing to people somehow in the future, that it was an intermediate school and now it's a middle school. I don't know what everybody thinks about that. I don't know if that's the case, or since some of the, one grade will still be there, so.
One other thought about it, again, it's just a thought. It was simply the fact that Woodgate was closing, and as a district, we were closing the chapter of intermediate schools. We no longer have 5th and 6th grade centers. So Woodgate's name is changing, and so it's just doing the same to River Valley. We would do, we could do time capsules, things like that, of closing that chapter, of offering 5th and 6th grade centers. Because, as you know, River Valley's the campus will be a middle school, and conversion to an elementary. So that's the other impetus for name change.
Mr. Knauer has already led his campus through some celebrating the last full year of Woodgate this year as a whole family.
And I like the idea of a fresh start. I mean, I like that too. I'm not opposed, I mean, I like Riverbend, I like Oakdale. I don't want to do Bosque because there's South Bosque right there. I think that's too confusing.
Yeah. I'm a fan of changing both of them.
Yeah.
That's my personal preference.
I'm actually a fan of
Colin's
keeping
got
them
a
both
good
the
point.
same.
I think if we're gonna change them, we change both, or we leave them both the same.
Yeah, and I'm actually more of a fan of keeping them the same, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
I would say a third option would be, I still highly encourage you to name the new elementaries because it can help clarify with rezoning. But we could talk about middle school being something that after we rezone, that we could ask for community input and do a vote or something like that for the middle schools, where that does apply to the entire district because everybody's either in middle school 1 or middle school 2.
Okay, so if we stuck with River Valley Middle School, that's 4 words. What if you did Midway Heritage Middle School
Yeah,
as
certainly
a
an option.
combination? Still no geographical reference, though.
I do like
Maybe Midway Legacy, because that MH might confuse, I mean, I know it's Midway High School, but you know, if you did the letters BMH.
MHMS.
Not MHMR.
No, very close. Might be better to do Midway, I mean, just, I don't know if I like that idea anyway, but. I don't know.
It isn't easy. It isn't easy to decide. It isn't easy to vet. And we even sat around with groups of people saying, okay, what are the connotations of, or what does it spell with the acronyms as well? Like you have to do for your kids' initials.
All right, so to keep things moving here, anything else we need to do on this, because we've got it as a action item on the agenda, and we can take all that up at that time.
We're gonna hold off on the middle school name.
Well, we'll see if somebody makes a motion in a second, and if not, then we certainly, or if somebody wants to affirmatively say when we get there, defer on the middle schools, that's fine too.
I make a motion, we hold off on the naming of the middle school.
No, we don't have to do that yet. We're just on presentation. You can't tell Ms. Vick she's out of order. That's just rude. We good to go then to move to consideration items? All right, consent agenda. We already know we're going to pull number 12, the resolution of the board regarding the hazardous traffic routes. We're going to pull that one off because it needs to be tweaked. So with that said, 1 through 11, the minutes, the Airmark contract renewal, our instructional materials allotment, delegate hiring authority to the SOUP, our alternate approver for TEA, early graduation request, our budget amendments that Wesley detailed, capstone contract for HVAC, our depository contract, and then the COVID-19 protocols, and then new position requests. Does any board member wish to remove any of those from the consent agenda? And if not, do we have a motion to approve 1 through 11?
I would actually like to remove the COVID protocols from the agenda for a conversation and potential amendment.
Very good. So,
And I'd like to remove number 8, so I can abstain, but still vote on some of the other stuff.
very good. So we will pull 8, 10, and 12 off the consent agenda. Do we then have a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda? Motion by Dr. Popejoy.
Second.
Second by, who was it? Mr. Alford. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We'll take them up in order. Number 8, the capstone mechanical contract. We're going to vote on that one separately. Do we have a motion to approve that contract?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Vick. Second by Dr. Popejoy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And note Mr. Tullis's abstention. Number 10, COVID-19 protocols. Colin.
I would I'm in favor of pretty much everything that's, we're being asked to approve there, but I would actually like to amend the statement where we encourage staff and eligible students to receive a vaccination. I would like to amend it to say that we also support the right of families and staff to make their own decisions. I really feel like, from parents I've heard from, that there's a fear that if we say anything about vaccinations, that they believe we're heading that direction. And it's easiest to just to head that off with a simple statement. So my motion would be to amend that language.
I was trying to get there. Yeah,
On your okay with leading, encouraging staff, just to be, comma, while allowing for freedom of choice, or something to that effect, not to remove the whole clause, just add something else to it.
That's the nature of what I'm trying to do. And I realize it's not a policy statement from the board necessarily, but I think it will inform the way the staff approaches it.
I think in your board packet, I'm finding it page 187. If you want everybody get to that page.
Okay.
I'm looking at the bullets.
Do you need exact wording from me for kind of what I'm looking at there? So we could actually just say, after possible, we could just say, comma, while not mandating vaccines for staff or students. Would be, I guess that would be my amendment, my motion.
Can we word it where it just specifically mentions the COVID vaccine?
Absolutely.
I know that's what it's talking about, but I think, because I'm definitely someone that thinks people should get vaccinated. So I would want it to be specifically encouragement to the staff and eligible students to get the COVID vaccine as soon as possible, and then comma.
Yes, I agree. That's fantastic.
So we have a clear statement, it's just the COVID vaccine.
Okay, so that we're clear on what it's going to say.
Well, she made an amendment to mine, and I accepted it as friendly.
Right, but somebody's going to have to write this down. I have not written it down. Encouragement to staff and eligible students to be vaccinated,
To receive the COVID.
to receive the COVID vaccine as soon as possible. And then you said what after that, Colin?
I'm writing it down right now.
Okay.
While not mandating vaccine.
Yeah, I actually wrote down, while not requiring COVID vaccines for staff or students.
Instead of mandating, requiring.
Either.
Okay, so that we're clear then procedurally, everybody clear on the wording that has been proposed? Cindy's not. We will. Let's see if we get there first, because Colin's got it written down. All right, so as I understand where we are, we have a motion to approve the revisions to the protocol with the fourth bullet point to be reworded as Colin just said a couple of minutes ago. And Cindy, so that everybody's clear, do you have it there where you could read it for us one time, please, ma'am?
It says encouragement to staff and eligible students
Okay, so everybody clear where we are? That motion is on the floor. Is there a second to that motion? If there's not a second, then that motion dies for lack of a second. Do we have a motion to approve the protocol as it is?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tullis. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Witt. Any further discussion? Questions, comment? All right, hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Our last one that got pulled, resolution of the board regarding the hazardous traffic routes. I understand we have someone that wants to speak to this agenda item, Cindy? Okay, and I'm sorry, you are? All right, Ms. McGowan, you have 3 minutes, and we're delighted to hear from you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kazantzis, Mr. Rusick, and the entire Midway Board of Trustees for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I thank you for your commitment and sacrifice to serve our students, staff, faculty, and community. My name is Kristen McGowan, and I'm reading from this to stay within my 3 minutes. I am a mom of 2 children in Midway ISD. I have a daughter at 4th grade at South Bosque and a son in 5th grade at River Valley. This is our first year in Midway ISD. We moved here from Colorado Springs this last summer, and we have been impressed by the district's commitment to excellence from the very beginning. The protocols that have been put in place for COVID-19 to keep our children and staff safe and to keep them in the classroom shows the district's commitment to safety. I stand before you tonight, though, with an additional plea for safety for our children, which looks like Mr. Freeman and Mr. Anderson have also put an extreme amount of effort to discuss as well. So I thank you for your time in advance of putting this on the agenda. Currently, the students at River Valley, as we've seen, soon to be middle school, have 2 options to get to and from school, bus or parent pickup. And those families, as you saw in the presentation earlier in Hidden Valley, Twin Rivers, and Meadowland Estates are not currently eligible for a bus because we are within 2 miles of the school and not in a hazardous area. Last week, I parked my car along Spiegelville Road, right where Oak Lane dead ends into it, and just to observe the current traffic situation. During that time, approximately 500 vehicle passes went through that intersection at Spiegelville and Oak, with Spiegelville Road now being open from Highway 84 to Highway 6, and the additional student traffic will only increase. Currently, there are several students from River Valley that are allowed to walk home. They cross at Spiegelville Road directly in front of the school, not actually at the traffic light, so there's not a crosswalk directly in front of the school at Spiegelville. And there are no designated signs indicating that there is going to be crossing. I made some additional observations with a video and pictures that I'd like to share with you now. Do the video first. It's 9 seconds, so it's going to go by fast. And then you just click there. So you see the student with the arrow. This is along Spiegelville Road, just south of Oak Lane. Within feet of a semi-trailer. And then you can go, if you go back to the presentation on the second screen, there's some stills. So the top left still, this is taken from an iPhone zoomed in, so not the best pixelated picture, but you can see there where they are crossing in the street, traffic all along Spiegelville Road. After witnessing this student along the road within feet